I think the one on awareness is very important. I think, having said that, the legislation is to an extent sufficient. I think two questions. One is that you are talking about alignment with the statutes in terms of whenever let's be practical now. I think you go to a bank, you are applying for a loan, someone comes there quickly and say, sign here. There are big documents like this. Sign here, man. There's no opportunity to read, I think. At the law say with regards to that? I mean, at the point of service delivery, or at the point of assistance to the consumer,
Yes.
to the customer rather, they may not have the luxury to ask questions or to say, please give me 30 minutes, give me a space in a room somewhere within the bank to read this, what I'm signing. So the person will just come and say, sign here, open papers. In fact, they will come with some sticky notes as to where to sign, with marked. That's the first one. The second one is the Consumer Credit Act. Maybe we just want to elaborate a bit there with regards to engaging a consumer before the whole process of getting sheriffs and repossessing. I mean, look, maybe the banks or any other institution will say, at that point in time, we are losing profits. We are losing lots of money. And that will lead to us retrenching or suffering some prejudice because we are now busy chasing someone. I mean, that's the most immediate one that someone will say. Yeah. What would be your response to that?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mabuza. I think on the first one, Mr. Mabuza, it's unfortunate that every time we go to the banks, you're always under pressure. And you just want to sign and get the money and leave. But as I said, the principle is always, that's how they then, when you litigate, they use freedom to contract, because you personally submitted yourself and under the understanding, and guys, that you read everything that was there, yet you had no sufficient time to read. And I think we've had cases where people then come and say, it was just a 2-minute thing. I was told to sign here, to sign here. It becomes a problem. But I want to say, I think it is now high time that we advise our consumer, take your time. You don't lose anything to say, can I be given an opportunity to go and consult on this contract? I have that right. Because remember, we are not being forced to sign whatever we are signing. It's the free will to sign. So that at least tomorrow, whenever there's contention, you can safely say that, look, I understood the terms and condition of what I was binding myself on, and that's it. So I think consumers must be aware that they have the luxury to go and have time to look at the contract, and if there are clauses that they are not satisfied with, they can go to your offices, depending where the issue arises from, to say, look, I'm being made to sign this, and I'm not sure if it does align with the law. As I said to you, that some of the contracts that are still there now, vis-a-vis what the legislative inroads now say, they are not in tandem, and probably so they would not want to give you to go and consult, because they know that with the advent of the Consumer Credit Act, some of the clauses that are there, they have to change. And if you guys are probably not on the forefront to know and understand this, you'd find that I think the consumer will be always at the disadvantage. And then probably secondly
but on this one, don't you think then that law should go further to press upon the one giving the service to say, look, maybe you can't sign before you give that person 24 hours or whatever, because you understand what I mean, so that it's on both ends.
So that could only come in if there's an opportunity for the legal practitioners in court to challenge those things, to the point that then a pronouncement either by the courts concerning that particular issue. But the other challenge is probably the appetite sometimes to have these issues jurisprudentially extrapolated. And I think that is what then also enriches the laws that we have, when even the consumers and the stakeholders, they can probably sort of go to court, not just because of any debt or what, but on a principle to say, but legally is this in the right place. And then on the second one, Mr. Mabuza, that you asked, I think the Consumer Credit Act, I think the most contentious one is I think it's the second section 100 that provides for the issue of the debt cancelling and all of that. And you are right that from the issues of the bank, for them is they want to recover their money, because one of the things that also the act exposes is the issue of reckless lending. To say, there's some times where a consumer is given loads of money, but on the normal scheme of things, he was not supposed to be given that money. And when he's not able to pay, obviously they want to recover. They are 3 million. And only to find that the problem was with them when they gave the money. And it also speaks on that. And the debt counseling, obviously, it says to me, look, I cannot attach this person. I need to find ways, minimal ways. So in a way, it's protecting the consumer. At the same time, it is probably a drawback on the banks, because they want to recover their money, they want their interest. So there's that balance which I believe the legislation was looking at, that to say, I think sometimes we lose credible businesses, not because they should close down, but because of some of these hidden clauses in these contracts that are not explicit, and probably the alternative ways of recovering money without crippling the business, because you're looking at the chain that is then affected, not just a single man owning the business, but the line, the employees, the families, and everything. So I think in a way this Consumer Credit Act was probably crafted in a way just to try and accommodate that sort of line.
And the regulations have just been issued out, I think, the consumer and the service provider, if I may say. The good thing about it is that it encourages the responsible lending. And then the responsible lending says you have to put some parameters as a service provider to ensure that whenever somebody is given a loan, there's some due diligence that has been done with regards to the affordability to pay back the loan accordingly. So that then links with what we do in terms of savings and credit cooperatives. One of the things is that we encourage our members to do savings, to make sure that they save regularly, monthly or so, depends. And to an extent that I think some of our circles and some people, they don't find any problem also more than just saving, but they can also put their gratuities there and invest with that. And by saving, it means this individual is gaining that, if I may use the word, of credit score. Yes, by the savings, they are increasing the savings score or the ability for this one to be lended the loan. So the challenge is when now, because with us as SACCOs, you find that there's a board. Okay, we are both shareholders, owners of the business, and at the same time we are the consumers. And sometimes when we get there at the table, we're speaking with the board whom we elected into office, and we are looking for something bigger than our state of loanability. And then we negotiate, and then we tend to maybe close one eye in some areas. That's where the problem arises now. Which those are some of the things that we do find, but all in all, whenever that has happened, then there has to be some way of making sure that the money for the members is collected back to in any way possible. But of course, the savings that are there, they can help as surety for any delinquencies that may arise in the process. Also, maybe in terms of, but more than that, there is education that is conducted, awareness and education, which also includes the legal framework that we operate within. We do educate our members about that. And we also try to look into now the products that are there in terms of loan and try to make them as affordable as possible for people to be able to access their loans. Yeah, and maybe I'll end here for now.
Okay. Where do you educate them? The awareness raising. I think the consumer that is joining virtual will want to know. Maybe to have a radio programs. What I know Mtera that talk about
This, because when you are electing people, we can elect. Because when you are electing people, we can elect my friend. All those things. So we as a SASCO, then after that we then empower the educators with the appropriate skills, and probably also the material and the information that they will have to share with the members. So that's the line of capacity from us and also the the committee, and then it goes to further to the people on the ground. Of course, we also work with other stakeholders like government, the Ministry of Commerce, the cooperative department. We also work with those entities sometimes. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Magan Hlengetwa, consumer rights are human rights. Where do you come in as a commission with regards to consumer protection issues or consumer rights? And what do you do? What campaigns or programs do you embark upon to ensure that consumer rights as human rights are protected?
Thank you so much, Program Director. Ngiyanivusela nonke. We are privileged and honored to be part of this gathering. And indeed, consumer rights are human rights based on the fact that they protect the dignity. We all know that consumers are the ones that consume our goods and services, so they need protection. And as a commission, we work with anything that is called human. So it's important. We had, I came in late, but I heard what the Consumer Protection Association said. I think it's Mr. Njagala, that some of the goods and the services that they consume are not good products. So it's important for us as a commission that has got an oversight mandate to ensure that, I think Haiso has mentioned, to ensure that we protect them, and we do that using various ways. Before I get to that, I'd like to introduce what the commission is all about, because some of you may or may not know what the commission is. The commission is the Commission on Human Rights, Public Administration, Stroke Integrity. Were established by the Constitution in terms of Section 164, and as an integrity commission in terms of Section 239 of the Constitution. We are still working on an enabling legislation. So basically now our mandate is derived straight from the Constitution. And the Constitution gives us 5 key mandates to work on. It's the human rights, public administration. I think it could be an ombudsman oversight mandate, or in some countries it is called a public protector. And we also work with issues pertaining to public sector corruption. We're working with issues that are talking to injustice. And then the last one is the issue of integrity. So at the Africa space, we have just started working with human rights and business, because previously we were not so much into issues of looking specifically at the collaboration between human rights and business, yet it is important to do so. And the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement has actually opened our eyes to say there is no way we cannot talk about people's issues when we're talking, or we're not going to talk about business, because we're all here, all dressed up, we're looking good because we have Chang, we've got money. And money comes from business, and sometimes we use business for good and for bad things. And institutions like ourselves have to ensure that there is fair play in whatever we do. So consumer rights now as human rights, how do we explain them? They are not separate from the fundamental human rights that we have in Chapter 3 of our Constitution. We have a host of these rights, but there is no mention of consumer rights specifically. But we are going to be then talking about what exactly do we talk about when we talk about consumer rights. So we use what is called a consumer rights-based approach in emphasizing the principles of fundamental human rights. We also say human rights and responsibilities, because you cannot talk about human rights and forget about responsibilities. I think I heard it. I don't know whether I heard it from. I think I heard it from SEA, that it's important. Even at the Commission, we emphasize that one cannot happen without the other. So, and then when we talk about these principles, we are talking about universality. When we are talking about universality, what are we talking about? We are saying consumer rights apply to all individuals without discrimination. We are talking about indivisibility, to say you cannot talk about one and leave out the other. They are all interlinked. Then we're talking about equality and non-discrimination. I think that one is clear, that we must all be treated fairly, and there must be no exploitation. Then we're talking about participation and accountability. I think it has come out from this forum as well, that it is important. Whatever we are doing, we're doing it for the benefit and the sake of the people that are paying our salaries. That is our taxpayers, ne? Yeah, because we wouldn't, especially those that are in the public sector, they should remember all the time, because whatever you are doing, we are just servants. We are serving the nation. And what we see sometimes is that people start swinging in chairs, and they forget that their main customer is the taxpayer. What's the role of the Commission now? We undertake an oversight mandate and accountability to ensure that consumer complaints mechanism function effectively, and duty bearers are held accountable. We're also looking at public awareness and education. Yes, whilst we are very thin on the ground, we are big on forging partnerships, and I'm sure that that's underway between ourselves and the Commission, in order to say we can't do it alone. There's just so much to do and so little time. And I think the CEO of SPRA also said, well, we've been working in silos for too long, and I think that should end. And we know that that is the key challenge that we're facing in us fulfilling our mandates. And I think that is what causes a lot of disservice to our customers and as consumers of the services that we deliver within our respective places of employment. We also do policy advocacy. I think I've picked up a point. You mentioned a very critical point, that saying that how can we hold the financial institutions, those service providers, accountable? And I think it is important. We need to influence that kind of policy to make sure that there is maximum protection. Because why are you giving me 13%, 15%, or even 30% now, when the law says, or the courts, I will not say it's the law, the courts are saying 9%. The best you can get from any court is 9%. So it is incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we stand up and we talk about these things. I don't mean we should Phakamise Madvolo. But, you know, we can talk about these issues. And I just say thank you so much for having this conversation, because it is long overdue and it is important that we start talking about these issues. And collectively, it can be possible. And I think it is also placing a duty on us, especially as a commission, as an oversight body, to make sure that we are also a convener, so that we can have a roundtable and talk about these issues. I think Rome was never built in one day. We can make sure that everything happens and happens for the good for all of us. So we also intervene when there are violations. We are, sorry, the way we don't, we use courts, we use the public, the DPP's office to make sure that we report any violations. We don't have powers to enforce, but we can refer. And also, thank you so much. And also we use alternative dispute resolution to make sure that the parties that are in dispute are brought together, because our intention is not to send everyone to jail, but ensure that everybody does the good. Does good things, sorry. The section 239 talks about integrity. And when you think about integrity, it talks about Nembeza, wait, so okay. Kusi, you know, it's important, Kusi, sometimes let us listen to that inner voice and do the right thing and not, you know, wait for laws, Kusi, as a guide. God gave us everything. Kusi, sikone, Kusi, sikabange, sicabangele nalomnye umuntu. We must also be very empathetic in our dealings as public officials. So basically, the commission ensures that there is functionality, there is responsiveness, there is alignment with human rights standards. I also heard someone from SWASA. And I think that is very profound. Everything starts with us, you know, trying to have a bare minimum on what we want to be as a person or as an organization. And if we don't have those values, if we don't have integrity, then there is little or nothing. There is no progress. We cannot develop as a country. Then the constitutional provision of consumer rights. We have section 20 that talks about equality before the law. Fortunately, we have our main partner here, which is legal aid. We are hopeful that once the act is is operational, people that are vulnerable will have assistance, because right now it is very, very difficult to have access to justice. Our friends in the law society, sometimes it's very, very difficult, and I'm hoping that they will also offer pro bono services, which will actually help other people to be able to access justice, because sometimes at the commission you can find that there has been a cross violation, but really at the end of the day, I said we refer matters to DPP, which means they will eventually have to go to court, but this person does not have the means of getting to court. So we're hopeful that that will be practical and ensure that there is justice for all. Then there's the protection of inhuman and degrading treatment, which is Section 18 of the Constitution, which shields consumers from exploitative and harmful business practices. Then there is Section 33 that talks about administrative justice, which guarantees fair access to a redress in the various institutions. I think most institutions were actually telling us what they do. So it's important, and I was particularly happy to hear what Central Bank has to offer, because at the end of the day, really, it's about assisting those that cannot access the service. Because when we talk about unfairness, we're talking about the powerful over the less powerful. Then the rights of women and children. We also know that women are vulnerable and children are extra vulnerable. So sometimes it can be very, very dire. So it's important that we, just to understand that we all have our own limitations as human beings, but that those members of society that are even more affected about some of these violations. So as I conclude, I'd like to talk about the intersection between consumer rights and human rights. Is the right to health, that is safe food, medicine, products, and fundamental physical and mental well-being. We're talking about the rights to information. I think that has been mentioned. But you find sometimes as consumers we don't read, we don't know, and I think it brings a duty again for us to make sure that we go out there. It's not about Mbabane, it's about us being there in the grassroots and making sure that people are made aware of their rights and consumer rights in particular, because we're about consumer rights today. Then they must have a right to adequate standard of living, have access to essential goods like food, water, housing, energy at fair prices. But unfortunately, you find, I was listening to some of the deliberations during the recent electricity hike. People were more angry than presenting issues that need to be dealt that we have in this house. So we must agree that we have it. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Magan Hlengetwa. We are also having Mr. Melus Dlamini from a Peculiar People. Please go join. Sisamshayela tandla nje. We appreciate ngoze ukuthi uba imbekile ngemisebenzi for wathi waphinza wabuya. We appreciate it, and I know that we actually earlier on it was mentioned that kunemsebenzi lenwendako lomkhulu and siyawubona. And now, just briefly, in less than 3 minutes, civil society-led consumer protection initiatives, strategies to educate and empower consumers in Eswatini. What are we doing? What should be done? And
okay, thank you. Sanbonan Mengnene, Libitong Melusi Dlamini, and I represent Peculiar People, which is an agency that focuses on creatively bridging the gap between consumers and local products. So our focus is on products made in Eswatini, and we have curated a series of events that is meant to connect and bring consumers closer to the products, for them to interact directly with the products, to interact directly with the entrepreneurs. One event that I would like to highlight is going to be happening in the Mbabane city. We're going to be closing off a street, Dr. Shai Road, the busiest street in Mbabane, and put together products and entrepreneurs that are basically behind local products. It could be food, beverages, clothing, you name it. But also the big guys are coming on board, the guys that are doing sugar, the guys that are doing bread, the guys that are doing eggs, and as well as the smaller guys in beauty and cosmetics and in fashion, in accessories, in crafts. We will have both the informal and formal traders. We've basically created this platform for the consumers to be able to interact with local products in real time in one space. It's pretty hard to get local products from different sectors in the same place. Some of them, obviously, you can find them at the Pick and Pays. Some of them, you can only find them in events, at the bushfires, at the farmers markets. But we've just created a space where on this specific day, we will have all these local products and also available at promotional prices. So we are just trying to encourage the interaction of the consumer as well with the actual products. And we will definitely, we have partnered with the Commission you know, to assist us with getting consumer feedback in terms of the pricing, in terms of, we've also partnered with SWASA to assist in terms of the quality standards post the event. And yes, we would like to invite everyone, and especially consumers, just to come and interact, to come and purchase, because we will be creating data based on feedback that we'll get from consumers that has to do with the different prices, accessibility of the different products, and so forth. And tomorrow we will also be hosting a forum for consumers, specifically for the product owners, specifically for the entrepreneurs that produce products for local and international markets. Mshengu will be one of our panelists. We have we'll have someone from SWASA as well, just to have a conversation on consumer preferences, on why consumers choose certain important products ahead of our local products. There's obviously varying factors from pricing to accessibility to consistency to quality, but we want that to amplify the voice of the consumer. We want that to come directly from the consumer. Thank you very much.
That's very interesting. I've got one question. So what triggers this focus on locally produced products, like in terms of the work that you're doing? And I'm going to come to Dr. Mseka, maybe from a research perspective. Like, to what extent does it enhance the economy, the focus on locally produced products? Maybe also in relation to maybe what other countries have done before. I think someone was talking about proudly South African earlier on. How much should we focus on that, and what are the benefits? Maybe after Umlangen. No, you start Umlangen, but what triggered it?
I think for us, it has always been an issue of choosing local, buying local, but we needed to at some point create a certain standard so that it's not just a blanket approach, and the consumers are directly involved in that making a decision to choose a product ahead of another one. I believe that is a right of a consumer, but we have had to then create these platforms so that the consumers can interact with the products and give us feedback in real time. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mseka.
Thank you so much. There's always a need to protect your own. We are looking at soaring unemployment in the country, and we're in an era where we are pushing for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, so that also it's taken up by tertiary institutions, where we should have innovation hubs within tertiary institutions, where we produce people that are going to be productive, produce employers, not employees. So there's a need for a country to also promote local products and also protect them from the international market. It's not only about promoting, but also protecting them from the international market. That encourages more people to get into business. If you look at it, it's easier to buy a sofa in Hlazatshe and bring it to Eswatini. But it's not easy to buy a sofa from Eswatini and take it to South Africa. That should speak volumes, that they protect their own products. For you to take a sofa to South Africa, you end up paying maybe 3 times the price. So in a way, it's saying, don't bring your things here, we've got our own, please take our own. So we don't need only to promote entrepreneurs, but let's also protect the industry. I like the fact that Mr. Dlamini here is saying they are bringing in SWASA to deal with issues. That's a very serious issue, because if you look at the exposure and the exposure that people now have onto the international market, people know, like I said in the beginning, people know what they want. When they come to you for a product, they know exactly what they want. So I think working with entrepreneurs and also working with Buy Local and working with SWASA, it will bring us to another level where we can talk of exporting as a country. And as a result of that, we're now talking about the growth in GDP of the country. Thank you.
Mr. Makakola, what should we introduce maybe from a legal perspective to protect local? from the international market, like he says, maybe from a legal perspective.
Thank you, Ms. Abuza. I think it's very important that, as Mr. Dlamini has said, that promotion of local business also means that we also create legislation that will cover the local market. I know that sometimes when we adopt laws, we always benchmark with other jurisdictions. But I believe that the trend should be, when we try to customize some of these laws, let us take into cognizance what the real-time Emaswati are and have, so that at least whatever legislation we then enact, they come to protect what Emaswati truly reflect and inspire. And I think moving out, probably just a bit a typical example, I think we have laws that try to protect your kind of dating and all that, which are good, but some of these laws, you see them that now you don't know ushela intombi seku now ilandzela seku criminal noma sekunjani, yet most of amaswati lemakhaya athi nje ukuthi kufuna ngibele ka1 kabili kathathu. So some of these things, then you see now that you have stalking and everything, and this is taboo to Maswati. We don't know what stalking is. But I think we have to find the balance to say, when we now say we are promoting local, we don't then again scare away us trying to promote our own, because we just blanket take some of this legislation, because obviously if we protect local, we will benchmark somewhere. But let's benchmark, at least understanding the political culture, or the social culture, and the economic culture of the people. I think that is what is important. Let's look at the culture of the nation, and then benchmark our laws in accordance with the appetite of the Emaswati.
Maybe before I thank you so much. Before I open for hands, ngibona ngathi khona bekukushisa Baba Khumalo in this question. Now ukhaba ufuna kusho in relation to this. Noma khona bonako lokunye. Oh, fine. Okay. Makehle ngethu. Kukhona lo ufuna ukusho ngakavulela itandla. No. All right, thank you so much. Ngicela sibashayele itandla. This is the I'm not sure what usakhona any Babe Piri on the line. But I think if there are questions directed to him, you can still pose them. We are having him here on the line if we are not able to have him here. So please feel free to ask any question from anyone. Lapha sinema experts and sinebantu laba on the ground who are working, and lokukahle ukuthi baletha different insights into this. So ungabuta nje so that we have it. And lo mbuto lona noma ngaba usawubutelwe wathi ubute nje ngoba ukhanza ukuthi thina swati wena ubute nale consumer lehlete nyalo ngoba siya live stream, we are live on channel yamaswati, we are also live on digitally. So na ubuta ungacabanga ukuthi ubutela wena ubute nje noma ngabe uyathi, but wathi ukuthi athi consume ngathanza kwathi ke lokho, but to clarify. Siyabonga. Thank you so much. Ngicala from Consumer Forum ngiyathatha ukukunika ngoba uhamba nababenjekala uma Consumer Forum ngabe sesengiyeda ukhona lomunye wesithathu ngothatha nje letandla ngoba uta director kubantu lombuzo naba bemaphanga ukhona la was 3. All right, in that order. Don't have one mic.
Greetings. My name is Nontetsele Longambule. I'm the Vice Chairperson of the Swaziland Consumer Forum. My first question will be directed to Babe Piri. I would have loved to know the Consumer Protection Act that they have in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, so that maybe they can assist us as a country in trying to copy them and improve them in our own country. And then I have an interest to Babe Makakula's presentation. I believe law should be more preventive and protect us other than rescuing us when we're already in crisis. And now when you are highlighting these laws that we are having that are said to be protecting the consumer, but you are saying they don't have regulations. As a young person, I get to have a question. Who is supposed to formulate these regulations really for the implementation of this act? Because they are not really helpful if they're going to be there and they can't be implemented. And Megan Schlengerfer, she spoke about the access to justice for a number of us. We are here, we remember that consumers are we're not just having the conscious consumers only. We also have this that are not really aware, or some of them are even illiterate, they don't know their rights, and abati noguthi, what are they supposed to do if they encounter problems? How popular is the education on the consumer rights? I know I'm from an organization that is supposed to be doing that awareness, but then we live in a country whereby consumer rights really are not that popular, and our act and as in laws nje, people they find taboo, it as a taboo to question things in our country. So now when you expect me from Loma Hashe ukuthi ngibhekane nelibhangi that have mistreated me, I don't even know ukuthi ngitawuqalaphi, and I don't even have the capacity to take them to court because anengize ngikhona afford the legal representative that I will need there. And I'm also even scared of the outcomes that can happen there, because so what if I find myself to be in the wrong and I actually being the one supposed to pay, now paying this bank, these people, they have money, I have nothing in my own name. Now, and then to Mr. Musega's presentation, you are talking of 2035 consumer and institutional readiness. We are in a dynamic world. We are tapping into the digital space, and people are becoming more aware of what they want, as from your presentation. And for me, that says now we are talking technological infusion. And now my question is, are we ready for the advocacy of the technological laws that comes with that? Because now when you say people are tapping into the digital space, it means you also have to protect them digitally. You have to protect them from data breaches and everything. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I think let me. All of them.
let's take them.
Thank you very much, Program Director. My name is Lungile Makakula. I'm the Director of Eswatini Legal Aid. And as an office that looks after people with, who are indigent in terms of their addressing their legal problems, I wanted to pose a challenge to the House to say part of the challenges that we are encountering here, particularly with regard to the consumer, is that where sectors are driven by profits as opposed to people-centric, kind of services, it becomes a challenge, because even withholding the different sectors accountable on the unfair practices and unjust practices becomes another challenge, because we are all in our different corners. Dr. Seka had actually mentioned that the issue around collecting data is very critical. And I want to pose this challenge to ask in the House Competition Commission, what sort of data do you have in terms of the sectors that are the ones that are most likely perpetuating, this injustice to consumers, first and foremost? And I'll also make an example. Sometimes the law is in place. The courts have pronounced themselves, there's jurisprudence. But for some reason, a sector continues to do things as they've always done, because it's uncomfortable to re-engineer the whole sector. And I'll take just one. The financial institutions are happy to continue as they did prior to the enactment of the Constitution, because it's convenient for them as a woman, when you walk in, they will tell you get your spousal consent. When we know Section 21 already has actually, you know, provides for the right to equality, and the courts have clearly pronounced themselves on that no woman, whether married in community of property, is expected to get any spousal consent for purposes of access to, you know, credit or whatever other, or even acquiring property, but it still happens today. Now the challenge is who is responsible, because Deputy Commissioner, as a human rights commissioner, is saying, well, the mandate is within the commission for that. But until someone comes and wants to vindicate that right, so much injustice goes. And until that one consumer faces off with the bank and says, no, you're not going to do that, the bank will be happy to change that because they don't want the noise, and continue, once you are gone, to do as they are doing. Even if we were to do the assessment today, we'll still find that it's still happening. Consumers are still subjected to that. Just because they're not vindicating their right, nothing is still happening. So who is the one in this room responsible for actually ensuring that sectors are actually moving towards people-centric kind of services that actually ensures that the rights of consumers are actually, you know, upheld? You know, there are so many examples that have been made in the House, which prompts us to say, beyond this conference, what are the steps that we're going to be taking to ensure that consumer rights really become consumer rights and people are actually vindicated without having, because they come from different social backgrounds. One may be able to actually vindicate their right, another may not even know the right exists, and therefore will not be able to vindicate it. Are we saying the only ones that get justice are those that already know their rights and are able to vindicate them? Or we should be the mouthpiece of those that do not actually have a voice? Thank you.
Okay, this is the last one. After this, we just give the panel. Okay, then we'll take that one.
Thank you. My question goes to Mr. Makakula. I think my question got sabated in part, but bengibuka theme. But in terms of the law, you'll find that the law is implemented in a robust manner. You know, this shall be in place immediately when gazetted by the minister. Where's the just transition? You know, we're just looking at the theme. Where's this just transition to say, oh, kodwa lo mthetho sogazethiwe neboknene. Kodwa ngithi nje nathatha iminyaka le mithathu nifundzisa lesive and kancane letting go. Who's responsible for that? The law doesn't have that maybe, but who's responsible for the just transition in those? Because I know ignorance of the law is no excuse, isn't it? But sithi ngale ndzaba yale just transition. So ngifuna ukubuza lokho. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Piri is ready to answer. If you can ask the team to show him here, but if they are not able to, and I will hand over to Siboni, the acting on from Lungile, on who is responsible, and then I will give the panels after this. So she will read out Mr. Piri's answer, and then answer that one as well.
Good afternoon. We're trying to get Mr. Piri first. So if we can't hear him, then I'll read out his answer because I have him on chat. So let's try to get Mr. Piri. Thank you. As I answer the other question, thank you very much for the question. And it resonates with the discussion we've been having about having a large elephant in the room. And someone is holding the ear, someone is holding the tail, someone is holding the trunk. And together with what Megan Klingetfor said from the Commission on Human Rights, it requires a consolidated effort by all of us to bring us together to the table, because I have information, Consumers Forum has information, SWASA has information, Environmental Authority has information, but we don't know how to bring this information together, consolidate it, and see how to move. Legal aid has information, because you see all the complaints that come to you, they don't come to us. Earlier in the room when Central Bank was speaking, they spoke about when a consumer comes to the Ombuds for Financial Services, but it's supposed to go to the Ombuds for the banking sector, but it's supposed to go to the Competition Commission. Among the three of us, we have that relationship where we're able to sit around the table and say, we have this particular complaint, we believe it falls under your mandate. But clearly there is an opportunity for a larger group at the table to say, legal aid has said, I have a consumer who came in and they have this complaint, and who is best placed to action it, or even to say, has it been dealt with in the past? Because if we don't consolidate our efforts to fight for consumers' rights, then we'll have recidivism by actors. The bank will keep giving you an agreement that's not great because they dealt with one customer. They didn't deal on a sector-wide basis. So I would invite you to come to the commission and we'll convene a meeting with Magen Hlengetwa, and we'll convene a meeting with Baben Jagala, na Magen Kambule, Sisin Kambule, I think, the vice chair, Sis no Mang Mag. Youth. So we'll convene a meeting and see how to get everybody on board and get the conversation moving. Does that answer your question?
All right.
Thank
You very much. Let's give the panel this to answer. Dr. Msega, there was a question, especially with regards to digital space. Are we ready? But I'm not sure who can answer the one on the consumers not having sometimes the capacity to take on institutions. But also, okay, Margaret Hlengetwa was going to look into that. Mr. Makakula, there were two questions. I think the other one was the law being proactive, and then the other one was the transition by Mr. Mapan. But the panelists are free to add.
Okay, thank you so much. Are we ready to take up technology? The answer is yes. Why do I say yes? During COVID, we saw an abrupt transition from manual system to technology. Some of the systems that were introduced were not refined systems. That's why we saw them collapsing collapsing post-COVID. So that is the only difference. So the other thing that we need to note is we operate in a global space. And in the global space, if you note, the voice of the customer has become very loud, especially on social media. I spoke of an advocate earlier on to say our customers can be advocate. We can also have negative advocates for institutions. Someone will just go online and they start speaking negatively about an institution. So the voice of the customer is growing very loud, and we don't have an option as the industry apart from us understanding and taking time to invest on understanding and collecting data from our customers. I also want to comment a bit on the consolidated effort here. I think that is the missing link in Eswatini. That is the missing link. We've got so many people in the house that are doing a lot of good things, but we're doing all this in silos. I've been running the Customer Service Awards for the past 9 years. And in that space, we have fought with the institutions. Some would think we want to demonize their brands and so on. We've fought with people that want to bribe themselves through to be awarded. And a lot has happened. And all those issues, they're speaking to consumers. And we got into that space not for anything, but because we've declared ourselves customer service advocates. And in advocates, all of us here, we have got a role to play like she was rightfully saying there's an elephant in the room. Someone is holding onto the ear, someone is holding onto the leg. I think we really need to convene a meeting. We need to put our consumers first and come up with something. I've muted an idea for a long time of us coming with the Eswatini Customer Service Index. One that is going to show in institutions that are giving us the best service. A local net promoter score where we are going to be able to judge and look at our own institutions. I've personally come up with a model for measurement of customer satisfaction, but it's something that is still somewhere within my database, which has not been put there to test for people to experience that. So I think there's a lot that we need to do, and we need to come together and work together. We should understand that we are not in competition, but we are complementing each other. And rightfully, what we want to do at the end of the day is we want to have a consumer that is satisfied and that is happy with our services and products that are being offered in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mabuza. I think there's the question on the legislative protectiveness and proactiveness. I think as a response, we can all appreciate that I think we operate within a constitutional democracy, that the work of enacting any laws is the preserve of parliament. And I think we know that before any law is passed, there's always those consultations and lobbying and all that before any act of parliament comes into the fore. And I think with all the stakeholders involved that are involved to say, can we have your input on such and such legislation before that act of parliament then is then passed. I think for us in the legal fraternity, it is then once whatever that law is passed, it is then to interpret it as well as the course. That's what they do. But I think it is probably as we elect our parliamentarians and those who are at the forefront of this to impress on the speedily probably enactment of these laws, in particular from the informed perspective of these stakeholders as well that are responsible, so that we don't enact a law that is piecemeal. As we are saying, if you enact a law that is seeking to protect consumers but it's not fully enacted, where some aspects are missing, then it provides a challenge, as we are saying. So I think it's a concern that ought to be raised probably to legislators to say, when you enact these laws, ensure that if they need to go with their regulations, that also should be factored in. But again, we understand that when you then create these legislations, obviously, it goes to the issue of the transition now to say, you have to take cognizance to say, if now we are saying we are changing the whole contract system of a bank that has been created over 20 years, then it means there must be time afforded and given to these institutions to then reconcile and start changing the whole spectrum. It does provide a challenge from what we are saying to say, if you say effective immediately, that's not possible, because there are then certain internal changes that need to be happen, and they cannot happen overnight. So I think it's that source of awareness again to say in our legislators, it's not always feasible to say probably in terms of how laws are enacted, the writing is standard. It comes into effect immediately, but we know that its implementation then is always affected by those other incidental issues that have to be factored in. So I think it poses a challenge, but it can be rectified by